Now, China has gained international attention by pulling an old move and yet again releasing a map tracing its territories. In the latest edition, the country has proposed stunning territorial claims over Arunachal Pradesh and Aksai Chin. Now, the recent satellite imagery has revealed that the Chinese forces have embarked on a significant construction project in Aksai Chin area east of the line of actual control. This is a territory that has been historically claimed by India. Now, images obtained by the space technology and intelligence company Maxar depicts the construction of the reinforced tunnels and shelters carved into a hillside along a narrow river valley, which is around 70 kilometers east of Depsang Plains in northern Ladakh. Now, I'm just going to take a moment to show you these construction activities that are taking place and the satellite imagery that we have gotten hold of. Now, it's significant because China is scared that there has been increased defense activities, number of air bases that are being constructed, number of defense projects that are being undertaken by India along the line of actual control in Ladakh, which directly aims at the Chinese infrastructure, Chinese defense personnel that have been installed along the line of actual control. Remember, Depsang and Demchok, these are the two areas which are the friction points. There have been meetings after meetings, corps commander meetings, the 19th one that just was held 2 weeks ago, but there has been no solution that has been found. The Chinese have refused to retract their troops from the line of actual control in these 2 points. And here's the map that we are talking about. This is the Darbukshok Daulat Beg Oldie Road, and along this region is we have Depsang area, and right beside Depsang is the Depchong area. Now, you see the line of control over here, you see the line of actual control over here, and you actually see this red dotted demarcated area on top, and that is Aksai Chin. Now, Aksai Chin is about 70 kilometers from line of actual control, and this is exactly the region where there has been increased infrastructure development, troop deployment. There are shelters that are being built, there are tunnels that are being built, there are roads that are being built in a strong pace, in a grand pace by the Chinese. Let's quickly take a closer look at these tunnels, and if you take a look at this image, now this is one of the 3 tunnels that have been captured by the satellite imagery that has been provided by Maxar. Now, this is in fact a likely reinforcement personnel bunker that has been dug into the area. There is a travel passageway which does not appear wide enough for. Now, these are the entry and exit areas which have been designed in a forked manner. So, in fact, if we could actually take a look at the clean image if we have, and there are the clean images in fact show those 3 tunnels that have been built. There are these enforcements that are being that we get to know that these are the enforcements that are at the point on the ground with the shelters that have been built, with the bunkers that have been built. Again, an image of over here, the earthwork that has been done to support the entrances as seen developed into the hillsides. Do we have another map? All right, I think these are the images that we share with you. We'll quickly try to share. Okay, so these are the earth moving machinery that has been captured by the satellite map. There are a total of 5 of these earth moving machinery that have been found, which obviously indicates the fact that the Chinese are building their infrastructure and setting up their personnel over there with the bunkers and the tunnels and roads to ensure that they are sufficiently supplied with the defense infrastructure in case there is going to be a targeted attack by the Indian Air Force along the other side of the line of actual control, where a number of air bases have already been built traditionally, and not just the air bases, but there are potentially a number of infrastructure defense projects that are taking place on the eastern side of Ladakh. Now, again, a map that showcases the developments of new roads and the personnel bunkers. And to talk more about these images that have now been released, and getting on my panelists who have at some point or the other been deployed along the line of actual control to shed more light into how these infrastructure development by the Chinese, who are clearly rattled, is then going to be of potential threat to the Indian armed forces, to the Indian defense forces, and how is it that we are going to be countering these infrastructure developments that the Chinese have put forth as an obstacle for India. I am going to start my conversation with Group Captain Dr. D.K. Pandey. Group Captain, it's important to know in terms of the imagery, if we could also put it out on the map of India, on the map along the line of actual control, where exactly is it that Aksai Chin lies? Where is it that in east of Ladakh, the traditional air bases that India has, also talking about the traditional air bases in Srinagar and Avantipura, and also there are more of these potential air bases that are being built along the line of actual control in Depsang, in Depchok, where permissions have been given around the wildlife sanctuaries existing in Ladakh. I think 13 or 14 of these defense projects, including an extension of an Indian Air Force base that is being built. Now, how does this allow for India to successfully counter any of these attacks coming in from the Chinese side, from Aksai Chin?
The basic point is the way China is trying to develop infrastructure, it means they are keeping track of all our development, whatever development, infrastructure developments are taking place our side in the country. And especially they know that Indian Air Force is a very potent element as far as this sector is concerned. We are much better placed in comparison to them because they have got high altitude, weather limitations, plus experience aspects and other things. Now coming on to the questions what you have asked. The first thing is our strategic reach to the locations which China is trying to save, number one. Number two, that whatever we are trying to, like Neoma airfield, we have just paid attention, which China never thought we'll be paying attention, and Fukche and all those places we are developing. Basic objective is we are undertaking massive infrastructural activities just to ensure that our strength is what to level where nobody can think of. Rather, whole work is taken as a deterrence element. Now, if China is reacting in this manner, it means they are taking cognizance of these developments. And but sad part is how to, we are a peaceful country, we are not going to cross the limits, whatever international norms are, we are adhering to them. But point is how to ensure that China is also maintaining the peace and tranquility in that condition. So diplomatic channel is the only channel left which is active now. But that is not going to help because from so many years, so many decades we are trying with China to sort out things. So what is left is we should continue our making infrastructural changes. We should build up our whatever way we can do, because there is no solution. They are free to work. Only problem is the area which they are tampering with is Indian area, which they have overtaken in so many years. So we have to,
fair enough, diplomatic channels, but right now I'm talking about military efficiency of the Indian armed forces, and particularly the role that has to be played by the Indian Air Force in being able to counter any of these attacks that are coming forth in terms of the deployment of infrastructure, deployment of arms and ammunition, deployment of armed forces by the Chinese along Aksai Chin. And Major General Gigi Dwivedi, if you could shed light again, we're talking about a number of these Indian armed forces air bases that have already been in the process of being constructed. There have been a number of them that have been given permission also. How does this allow us to counter the Chinese attacks along the line of actual control? Very important points, two of them being Depsang and Depchok. Depsang and Depchok.
Well, Megha, firstly, we need to understand that Ladakh is in two parts. One is Eastern Ladakh and one is Western Ladakh. The way the division generally is around the Karakoram Pass. East of Karakoram Pass is Eastern Ladakh and west of Karakoram Pass is Western Ladakh, and I have commanded my unit in both these areas. So I thought it is important to clarify that east of Karakoram Pass is the Eastern Ladakh and west is the Western Ladakh where Siachen is there. Now Chinese came in 2020 May in Eastern Ladakh, and they came in three sectors. One was Pagong Tso, Galwan and Depsang, which is also known as DBO sector. Now, what has happened is we need to have a total look at what has happened in last 3 years, because generally tendency is to pick one event after another. Oh, now they are constructing bunkers, so we try to focus on that. But that's not the way you evaluate Chinese. You got to take a total look as to what has gone along in 3 years. In 3 years, three things have actually happened. First and foremost, the status of LAC has undergone a change. Whereas we used to have LAC demarcated by patrolling points, today they are buffer zones. And buffer zone means that you have a buffer between the two opposing forces, and this is a disadvantage to someone who wants to be on offensive. Because when patrolling points were there, you could launch an offensive from the patrolling points. Now you have to traverse the buffer zone, so this sets up an offensive action at a disadvantage.
Okay.
Secondly, Chinese have taken, please give me 2 minutes, Chinese have taken consistent effort to improve the infrastructure, both the military infrastructure and also the logistic infrastructure, which is roads, bridges, bunkers. After all, the infantry fight for bunkers, the ground forces fight for bunkers. So they are constructing bunkers. Should there be another skirmish, they are well prepared. Third point is that today we talk about integrated warfare, like the Western Theatre Command of Chinese has the complete wherewithal, whether it is Air Force, infantry, all supporting arms. So when we are talking about our advantage, we are talking holistically. That yes, Air Force, ground forces fight together. This is integrated entity. We definitely have an advantage in terms of the air, but we also need to ensure that we have same advantage in tactical terms, because strategically you may be balanced, but tactically there are places where we have advantage, where Chinese advantage. So both the forces are today eyeball to eyeball, only separated by buffer zones, and therefore both will try to improve the infrastructure. This is ongoing military activity. And last point is the Chinese possibly are now holding a defense line which is around the buffer zone, and they are not willing to withdraw from either Depsang or Demchok. So they are trying to form in, and this is a clear indication that Chinese will hold this line. They will keep talking, but they will not actually go back. And last point is maps. Chinese have just issued new maps which include Arunachal and Aksai Chin as part of the Chinese territory. Well, this is the Chinese grey zone warfare, where they try to project their claims on paper for the global polity, that tomorrow, if something happens, they will say, okay, we already been having, by putting the claims, and they are on record. So this is how the Chinese work. My last point is we need to be prepared holistically, both on the ground and political diplomatic level, and change our attitude towards China. We must question our one China policy. We must also question our relationship with Taiwan, and that's how we should move forward.
Okay. Professor Nalapat, now, there's been a hue and cry after the Chinese have released this map, making claims, taking claim on the Indian territory of Arunachal Pradesh and Aksai Chin. Now, just 24 hours later, we get these satellite images that there have been increased construction and infrastructure deployment in Aksai Chin in retaliation to the Indian armed forces setting up counter provisions along the other side, along the eastern side of line of actual control. In such a situation, what is it that India needs to do? Do we at this point of time ignore these retaliations coming in from the Chinese side, these tactics that are being played by the Chinese right ahead of the G20 summit? Something similar was played by the Chinese when there was a delegation arriving in Ladakh and there was a delegation arriving in Arunachal Pradesh, and coming about picking out certain villages along the border, naming them and saying that these are territories of China.
Look, the fact of the matter is that these new maps, well, they're not really new, because the Chinese unfurled them last year at the Samarkand SCO meeting, frankly. They distributed them informally, and the maps are pretty much the same, what they are today. So the fact is that they are basically establishing their claim on territories that don't belong to them. They are basically challenging the United States, for example, and Japan, where Taiwan is concerned. They're challenging the ASEAN countries, Indonesia, for example, where the South China Sea is concerned. They're challenging India, where the Himalayas are concerned. So they are on a spree, quite frankly, of demonstrating their aggressive intent to all these different players. The point is that, I'm quite surprised as to why, at least to those of us who are not part of the government structure outside, why we are not seeing more of the creation of mechanisms which can ensure that there is a joint activity directed towards facing this common threat. Because all these areas are under threat. And the Chinese are basically saying, look, they all belong to us and we can move in anytime we want. Now, the point is, are we also always going to take a line, not only India, but other countries as well, a defensive line that, look, all right, let's react when the Chinese act? Or, frankly, get together and decide that we also need to act, and in a manner that the Chinese will have it as a serious problem to react. They have been doing this for quite some time. They have been building these structures for quite some time. These are not defensive structures, they are offensive structures. The good news is we have also been building these structures, and the Chinese are very upset. So they do something, we are not supposed to be upset. We do something on the same lines, and they get very upset. So this is the classic definition of, frankly, double standards. And this is what we are faced with on the border. But I think as far as India is concerned, after 1962, I don't believe that there is any justification for having any illusion about the fact that we have a predatory power on the border, and that predatory power is challenging other countries as well. And I think it's important to come together for all these countries and work out a common strategy.
Okay.
When the general talks holistically, I would like to say the word holistic has to apply in a global context.
Okay. Major General Sudhakar ji, now we've taken a look at how militarily we are positioned along the line of actual control versus the diplomatic efforts that need to be made by India to stay wary of the Chinese aggression that is being shown diplomatically as well as along the line of actual control militarily. In such a situation, can there be a solution that can be found by India? Keeping in mind that reliability on the Chinese is something that cannot really happen, and it's a pipeline dream. And when we talk about Prime Minister Narendra Modi going ahead and holding a bilateral on the sidelines of the BRICS summit, we again stay alert and we make our own decisions. We apply our minds and we ensure that we are militarily equipped to counter the Chinese forces.
Megha, good afternoon. Thank you for getting me to your show. First thing first, let me, at the cost of repetition to some extent, since NewsX is a very reputed and international channel, many learned people watch it. Let me clarify. Line of actual control is the border today as it is obtaining between India and China. And line of control is the border between India and Pakistan, which General Dwivedi alluded to a little while back. Between these two lines, there is a wedge. That wedge is the Karakoram Pass, or there is a distance of 75 kilometers unmanned today between the northern extreme of Siachen Glacier and the northwestern extreme of the eastern Ladakh. He has beautifully explained that what is west of this particular line is Western Ladakh, west of Ladakh is Western Ladakh, east of Ladakh is Eastern Ladakh, but in between there is a wedge, which is of 75 kilometers. So this is first, let me clarify. Second thing is, very interesting question you have asked, militarily or response, it's a political situation now in my opinion. It's a strategic issue which will not give us military solutions so quickly. So having said that, let me clarify as to why China is doing what it is doing. China is doing what it is doing today. Let's look back to, I'll not take the viewers far too back, but let's take our mind back to 2012 and 13. When Xi Jinping came to power, there was a departure from Deng Xiaoping's philosophy of biding your time and keep focusing on economic progress to that of aggressive projection of power. So with Xi Jinping having come to power, the complete stance and the approach of the China, the so-called Middle Kingdom, changed to an aggressive projection of power. That aggressive projection of power started manifesting in different forms and shapes. The first of its kind was in 2013, which took place in Depsang. I have been the General Officer commanding of this sector. And Depsang Bulls, they came in, they went back after negotiation. So to underscore the point that Indian diplomacy has had its best foot forward, and of late it is becoming sharper and proving its credibility.
Okay.
Similarly, after 2013, many other things have taken place. There was an incident in Chumar, there was another incident in Demchok, one more took place in Pangongso, and in the year 2020, we all know what happened in Galwan. But prior to that, Doklam also had taken place in the eastern sector. So why is China behaving this way? There is a remarkable milestone which India should feel proud of. In my research and study, that remarkable milestone is Article 370 having been abrogated and Article 35 Alpha. It actually caused jitters. Chinese have been sweating since then. With this abrogation of Article 370, there was an indirect or a direct cartographic aggression which China claims itself to be the best in this paradigm. It had overshadowed. And this Article 370 and reorganization of the state of Jammu and Kashmir into two union territories actually caused it unsettled China. Thereafter, almost in the near time frame, this abrogation took place in 2019, 5th of August. In the same year, there is a road which you mentioned in your preamble. It is called DSDPO road. This road has been under construction since 2001. For multiple reasons, it got delayed, but finally it was commissioned in the year 2019 itself. This DSDPO road is approximately 256 kilometers. When General Dwivedi or people of my seniority, they had a chance to go there in that sector. At some point in time, it used to take 21 days of acclimatization and walking to reach from foothills, go up to the DBO. Nowadays, this road is enabling us to reach the DBO within 12 hours in light vehicle. So we can well understand the speed of mobilization of the troops.
Right.
In earlier days, just 2 more minutes, it is beneficial what I am going to say. This is hands-on experience. DBO per se has got a kind of an airstrip, which in 2008, a bold move was taken by one of our Air Force leaders. He had landed the aircraft there. This is the second shock or the jitter which was given to the Chinese, but no action, no reaction. And this DBO at that point in time is to have very minimal strength. Today, for the security reasons, I will not quantify the quantum of forces we have in DBO. The road is connected. We used to be having a summer stocking. Nobody would have heard about this. We have always been used to and heard the terminology called winter stocking. This DBO used to be so configured. There is a river in between called a shock river. It is to be flooded and our troops is to get cut off. In earlier times, we used to do summer stocking in the month of winter. Nowadays, because the road connectivity is there is no stocking virtually required, although we are stocked up. We have different levels of stocking. But suffice to say, the supply chain is absolutely sustainable without any interruption. But what has happened is, this road is between 7 kilometers to 30 kilometers away from the line of actual control today. You asked a very pertinent question. What is Aksai Chin? Where is Aksai Chin? Many of us don't even know where Aksai Chin is. You see, I don't want to confuse the viewers. There are 2 mountain ranges. Unfortunately, these mountain ranges are not like what is obtaining in the eastern sector, the McMahon line. There is a very prominent, discernible geographical feature. That side, north of it is China or Tibet, or this side is India. Whereas, when you talk about the eastern Ladakh, there are 2 prominent ridges. One is called as Kulnul Mountains, which is the farthest one, based on which one 1865 line had been proposed by somebody, some British gentleman, and towards own side is another mountain range known as Karakoram Range.
Yeah.
The Karakoram Range and Kulnun Mountains, between these two mountains is the Aksai Chin. 38,000 square kilometers of area of Aksai Chin plus little bit of Ladakh area, that is towards our side, is presently in occupation of China. Plus 5,180 square kilometers of land of Shaksgam has been ceded by Pakistan way back in 1963, immediately after the 62 operations. Why am I stressing on this is that this particular road access is giving a direct or indirect threat, as far as the military science is concerned, to a very prominent province known as Xinjiang province. We all know what is the key challenge to China in Xinjiang provinces.
Yeah, absolutely. You make a lot of these relevant points, and you've given us a very vivid imagery of the map that is Aksai Chin and the areas that have for long been occupied by the Chinese. And my following question would be to Group Captain D.K. Pandey. Now, how important and integral does it become for India to then take control back of Aksai Chin? Because all these activities to the Chinese advantage in terms of the deployment of personnel or the infrastructure activities that are taking place in Aksai Chin, which are a threat to India's line of actual control, which are a threat to Ladakh, which are then a threat to Srinagar, going down further on the left-hand side of the map. Is there a possibility in the course of the future that there can be occupation of Aksai Chin that can be then done by the Indian troops, Indian forces?
The point is, definitely, everybody will like to have the proposition, what you're saying. But the unfortunate part is, do we have such type of mindset? The biggest problem is our mind. This is all mind game which is going on. Because China also knows they don't have any exposure of military warfare, as well as their troops were never exposed to actual arms war. So only it is mind game which is being played, number one. Number two, getting back, how to get back all these things. There are three ways. One is that militarily we go against them and go offensive against them and then try to overpower. Then it demands me, it may escalate in further dimensions also. So this is not a practical solution today. It may be a solution tomorrow in case military will is there and political will both combine and they will take decision towards that. The second part is we have to ensure that we are military maintaining the required of preparedness. That is very, very important.
Okay.
We have divided whole thing into parts. One is strategic and another is tactical. Tactically, we should be ready to take on any small militarism from the China. At the same time, for the prolonged war, we should be ready. For this, we have to keep the whole development in that area, how it is progressing, to keep in mind.
Okay.
So diplomatic, already I told you. Third, one more
Okay.
last point. The economic aspects must be also kept in mind, and we have to see how we can leverage our strategic friendship with other countries towards getting all these things back.
Okay, fair enough. Major Dwivedi, again a point of contention, is the Indian Armed Forces equipped to take back Aksai Chin? How prolonged and long a war are we then envisaging with the Chinese if political will helps us in wanting to take back our territory?
Well, Megha, it's a very complex question, but I'll just put a very simplified answer. Well, when you lose territory, there's no timeline. India can wait for 50 years. When our time comes, I'm sure we'll take it back. But we should not lose our claim. We should continue to say that this is illegally occupied, and we'll decide the time when we'll take it back.
Okay.
Second point is that it has to be a holistic effort. One is militarily, we got to build our capability first and foremost, ensure we don't lose any more ground, and we keep building our offensive capability. We have lines of communication which are shorter than the Chinese, and we have certain advantages which we cannot discuss here, but I'm sure we will at some point of time take it back. And second, diplomatically, as you know, Professor Nalapat has said, that as a world, we have to get together against Chinese aggressiveness, against Chinese, ways of coercing the world. And we must ensure that Chinese are under pressure. May it be in Western Pacific, may it be in Indo-Pacific, Chinese must be actually cornered.
Okay.
Diplomatically, politically, and militarily, as I said, we must keep building capability. We'll decide the time, we'll take it back, but let Chinese not be under the impression that we have given it away. We'll take it back when the appropriate time comes.
Okay, Professor Nalapat, now political will, diplomacy that has been going on for months and years together, would it really have been possible had the Chinese not taken control of Aksai Chin many decades ago, that our territories which are in disputed hands at this time, whether it is Demchok, whether it is Depsang, would they really have been able to have the capability of capturing it, keeping in mind the Aksai Chin area was once a part of India?
The fact is the Chinese have basically so far had a free ride over most of the regions that they have trampled over. That has stopped in the case of India. Very firm action has been taken by this government. But the reality is the front is not only on land. The front is on seas also. The front is in the air. And may I point out, China's supply lines are extremely vulnerable. And it's very important to understand that the Chinese need to be engaged on a broad front. In the sense, if they attack in any of these fronts, all the fronts need to be active, and I can assure you they will implode under that.
Okay. All right. I have only as much time, and I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast. Professor Nalapat, we are unable to, I mean, there's an audio glitch, so I'm not able to hear you, but you know, we could take hours together to discuss this, and it will be very interesting to make people knowledgeable about all these areas, all these strategic points. Where is it that the Chinese have put in their reinforcements, their tunnels and their bridges and their infrastructure capabilities along the line of actual control? Where is it that they at this point of time fear the Indian side retaliating and putting countermeasures by way of air bases that have been set up, by way of the defense projects that are going on, and the strategic places then give a one-upmanship for India to fight against the PLA army?
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.